You're now listening to Spin Wax Radio. Spin Wax Radio, your new music station for all your music needs.
Hello?
Hey,
Hey.
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 All right.
How you doing?
So good. How are you doing, Miss Franks?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
So welcome everyone. This is the second episode of With the Shits, hosted by me, Lana. Tonight we're gonna have a little back house look into home ownership with a very, very experienced housing counselor in the Philadelphia metro area. She has a lot of experience with both rental and home ownership assistance, and she's gained a lot of wealth and knowledge through many of her mentors, and I'm pretty sure she'll touch base on that. Tonight, we'll speak especially on housing and its effect, and especially our community, and some of the normalities that she sees. Also, we'll just get into the meat and potatoes of home ownership and how it affects our community, both positively and negatively. So, Miss Franks, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks.
Pleasure
So
to
let's
be here.
first, thanks. We love having you here, and we just want to start off first off with what is it that a housing counselor does, and who is Ryan Franks?
Um, so I'll answer this backwards. So, who is Ryan Franks? So Ryan is kind of rebellious. She is a mother, um, a woman, a black woman. Um, she is a lover of music. She is um, a gamer. She's a whole lot of things. She's an animal lover. She is a puppy and kitty parent. Um, but most of all, one of the biggest things in my life is I am a HUD certified housing counselor. A HUD.
Oh yeah, how
You,
dare
you
I
guys,
not mention
yeah,
that?
yeah, you guys,
God
you
certified.
can't see me, but I'm throwing up the quotation mark. A HUD, certified housing counselor. We are, it was a big certification test that we had to take. So I am nationally certified, but my area of expertise is Philadelphia and the Philadelphia metro area. I basically assist homeowners with all kinds of issues on the back end and front end of home ownership. I assist homeowners with pre-purchase education, with basically assist different types of people at different points of their home buying experience. I can help someone who is starting out. I can help someone who is pretty aware of what's going on and help them get assistance with necessary education. A lot of my job is education. I also my specialty, sad to say, is foreclosure. I do a lot more of that than anything else, and that is assisting homeowners with foreclosure and helping them fill out paperwork, explaining to them the rules and regulations, making sure that they know they're not going through this process alone, and sadly, if things don't work out, possibly helping them go through the next state, which is not always fun, but it's a part of the job. I assist renters, especially now due to the new crisis with the pandemic and how it affected renters. So I help with that rental assistance and rental counseling. Pretty much looks like pre-purchase counseling. So I do a lot of education, a lot of paperwork, all kinds of things. But
engaging with the community and just kind of hands-on with a lot of sensitive situations.
yeah, people don't usually come and see me until they're either in crisis or they need money. Um, they, I do, pre-purchase education. I've found that as I've done it more and more, I understand how important it is. Um, but it's also it can be pretty scary because depending on who teaches the class, or who's giving the material, it can be very intimidating.
Mm.
Home ownership is a big thing. It's a responsibility, and it's not, sad to say, it's not for everybody. I would love to say that it is, but reality is it's not. Um, but
And
it
what
is
makes
one of the
you say
foundations of
that?
building wealth.
What
Hmm?
what's the what are some things that you look at the feasibility if someone is even home ownership, not necessarily
Right.
material, but mindset or just
So,
space?
you know, so that was the thing that I learned. So it's not necessarily looking at to see if someone's home ownership ready, because a lot of my clients are, for the most part, home ownership ready. It's how good are you with your money? I have a lot of clients that make really good money, but they like to shop and enjoy their money. And one thing about home ownership is that you have to have money for a rainy day.
Yep.
And that's
Very
hard to have
important.
if you're enjoying life. Um, it's just a fact. Now, if you have the income where you can enjoy life and save money for a rainy day, then there's nothing I can say to you. And I have some clients that are like that. There's nothing I can say to them because they walk in, perfect credit score, savings account, checking account, everything's perfect. All they need me to do is say everything's perfect. Here's your sort, here's, what that then the conversation changes. But I have some clients who they make really good money and they play hard. So homeownership can be, for them, looks more like budgeting, understanding wants and needs, and living within their means so that they can save a little bit so that they can get the money up so they need to do what they need to do. I have other clients that are really, really good with their money. They have really good credit scores, they have savings and everything else, but they have no idea how the home buying process works. They have no
Mm.
clue. Um,
So it sounds like
and
on both sides it's a lack of or misinformation or education, as far as relationship with money and how to leverage it.
yeah, well, yeah, because I think that and and and, and on the homeownership side, I see this more with first time home buyers and I guess my foreclosure clients too. People are really concerned about what things look like from the outside. So the phrase "keeping up with the Joneses," hint hint. Um, but with those, with that type of mentality, a lot of people spend themselves or buy houses that they can't afford because they want to look good, or it's not just relationship with money, it's how they see themselves and it's where they want to be. I have people who will work themselves into a grave just to buy a house, but won't be able to enjoy the house. They can't do anything but fix it. They can't buy anything else. They can't go on vacation. They can't do any of that because they have this large responsibility that takes up all of their money. But then I have clients who, could you live in the way you live and you ain't, and I can honestly say I've been guilty of that myself. I mean, it's human. I like to shop. So I mean, when I do. So
Yeah,
and also
shopping is a
I like to
thing.
shop. I
Shopping
love,
is a thing.
I like pastries. I like, sweets. So and I live in Philly. Philly's not cheap anymore. So I understand, my relationship with money, and I also understand what I'm willing and to deal with and not willing to deal with. I think that's another idea of home ownership too. One thing about home ownership education is talking about all the aspects of home ownership, not just paying the mortgage. It's more than that. It's paying the mortgage. It's
Definitely the
maintenance.
maintenance.
It's
Yep.
upgrading. It's a landscaping, depending on what your property looks like. It's the outside.
Yeah.
It depends on
Yeah.
where you live. If you live in the county, do you have to pay for your trash separately? Does it come out in your taxes? There
Right.
are
What does
all
your
kinds of
taxes look
things.
like? A lot of
Yeah, like
factors. There's
yeah,
a
like
lot of
there
things
are
to
all kinds of
contribute.
things that people that you have to take into account that comes more from paying the mortgage every month. Everybody, a lot of people that rent, that's one of the reasons why our rent is so high, because those are things that we don't have to deal with. If
Right. Right.
my
And
sink gets
some
clogged,
people don't even look at the glass half full for renting. I know in my industry, I do some real estate and just being property management and business, that a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people don't take into account of how much leverage and convenience renting can potentially be. And it can also be a strategic stepping stone. And businesses do it all the time. They lease properties for a certain amount of time, 5 years, whatever, and it's either on
Mm-hmm.
a net income or net sales or some type
Mm-hmm.
of formula, and they rent until they figure out what space is right, what type of trade designs they need to change, what they need, what space they need, where their demand is. And especially for those that went into business right before COVID or were having blueprints up and now their stuff is established and was empty during COVID, that was a good leverage point for them. I know a lot of commercial spaces actually forego the loss of just paying the lease off as opposed to the loss of sales and the loss of employees and the loss of things like that, because leasing gives you that leverage. If they had purchased that space, that would have been a completely different ballpark, because now you're talking about liquidating um,
Assets. Yeah.
commercial. Well, you're liquidating a
A
commercial
commercial
space,
property.
showing definitely downfall in commercial renting.
Mm.
So then you're all the way in the hole. So renting, leasing, even cars at some point, depending on what the program is,
It,
depending on what your plan is,
it's
it can
it's
work.
a case by case. It's all about the
Mhm.
individual. And I think
Yeah.
the one thing that I try to teach my first time homeowners is that, you know, housing is great. Home ownership is great. I grew up in a house. My mom's a homeowner. My mom's a housing counselor, um, or a retired housing counselor. So I grew up in a house. I grew up in a house where my mom did a lot of the maintenance herself. Till this day, she's covered in paint, fixing stuff. It makes her happy. You know what I'm saying? It makes her happy.
That's that equity
Me,
makes you so good.
yeah. Me on the other hand, no. I'm not fixing anything. I've done it enough. I'm not painting anything. I've done it enough. And I actually enjoy a apartment. I like apartments. So my idea, if I was going to buy something for myself, would be a condo.
Right.
But then you have to think about the fees and stuff. So a lot of times when I talk to my homeowners, it really depends on where you at, Jesus, where you're at, and what you want to do.
Right. And I guess the
To
premium
talk you
tag
out of
on
it,
is for the. Hmm.
yeah. And my job is not to talk you out of it, but it's to make sure that you're fully aware of what you're walking into. Like I said, my specialty is foreclosure, something nobody wants to talk about, but it is a part of home ownership.
Right.
It is.
Right. So
It
let's
is.
just bring it back. Let's just bring it back a second, because we went way deep into just all the way into the deep end. Let's bring it back a little bit. So, home ownership.
Yeah.
So you definitely come for the front and the back end, and you say that you do homeowner, first time homeowners
Uh-huh.
program.
Hmm.
So that's a lot of education. So when people come to you, what's the setup look like? What does a day of that look like for you?
Oh, okay. So my first time home buyers, there are a lot of ways to do first time home buyers education. Um, the way I do it right now, due to the pandemic, and I actually kind of like doing it this way, is the first introduction to the first time home ownership program is a workshop. Um,
Okay.
we're on a webinar, or we're actually at a workshop with coffee and donuts. And we're actually really meeting the people who are going to help us with this transition from um, home buyer to home owner. You're going to meet me, the housing counselor. I try to have a realtor there because a realtor is a very important part of the process. I have a mortgage person there because you can't do anything without the money. I
Right.
usually try to have an insurance person there to talk about the safety of your home and what you need to have. And we all kind of, um, you know, ping pong off of each other to talk about the importance of homeownership and what we do. Once you get through the workshop, you're given, some uh, handouts, some written materials, And you're given an intake packet to fill out to give me basic information so that when you come to your session, I don't have to ask you all the information. The meat and potatoes is in the first session when you come to see me one on one. And a one on one visit is when you and I sit down, we pull your credit. It's a soft pull, so it's not going to really affect you that much. It's for educational purposes. We look at your credit report, we see what your credit score is, um, and we go from there. Some of my clients are very well aware of how credit works, and their goal is to bring their score up or to keep their score where it's at or to create credit because some of my clients have no credit. Some of my clients don't understand credit, and I understand that because when I started, I really didn't understand credit all that well either. They don't understand how important it is, and especially when you're young and you just have it, and if you're not
Right.
mature enough to handle it, how in your years, not when you're old, but when you get older, those mistakes of the past can affect you. A lot of us are feeling that with student loans. Um, we also look at your budget,
Biden.
right?
Biden.
Look at your budget. We look at what you're taking out. What's your debt to income ratio? What does your life cost? What does your everyday life cost you? Um, we talk about what you're looking for. Have you talked to a realtor? Have you talked to your lender? Have you started looking at properties? Um, how much money do you have saved? We try to figure out in the first visit we try to create what we call an action plan, which is where we need to go, who we need to talk to. And that can be, like I said, different depending on the individual. You don't need anything from me except to explain to them maybe the difference between different types of loans. That might be the most that they need from me. Or getting some assistance on some loan products. And, I was looking at this one and this one. I can't tell you what kind of loan to get, but we can look through the information and you come to the realization yourself of what you think is better for you. Um, I can also help you improve your credit. I can help you um, you know, talk about home ownership in general and the difference between the pros and cons of home. There are so many different things that we can talk about. Usually the sessions with me are about 2 hours. And after we do your intake and we get a little bit of an action plan created, um, depending on what the plan is, we make a schedule for 2 weeks or next week or whatever. You come back and we go forth until you're at the point where you can talk to a lender and purchase and go forward.
All right. And so, where would someone look for someone as marvelous as yourself? And what is it? For profit, nonprofit? Is there government agencies? Are there multiple
So
different types of agencies?
there are a
How
lot of
does
different there are a lot of different type of agencies. I work for a nonprofit, um, the Unemployment Information Center. Whoop, whoop. I work for a nonprofit, but there are many organizations out there that can help you. Um, there's a lot of ways to get us. HUD, of course, has a website where you can find HUD certified housing counselors. But when you go to the large banks, the big guys, Wells and all those guys, they actually have links to get a hold of people like me. But you can just go to Google and type in HUD certified housing counselor near me, and they'll just pop up. You know, they'll just pop up.
okay,
We're
okay,
everywhere.
okay, that's good. So that's good, especially for, at least everyone that's tech savvy. At least that gives them a
Yeah,
whole lot of
yeah. I
information.
mean, there
Ask
are
somebody.
it's now there are in a lot of like community events, you'll find organizations like mine. So if you're the kind of person that wants to go into something, I know there are people that want to talk to someone face to face. A lot of community events have information for us. State rep offices have information for us. You know, there's a way to find HUD certified housing counselors and housing counselors. There's a way to find this. You just have to be careful that you don't. There's a lot of scammers out there, so you really want to be careful on who you give your information to.
What's a telltale sign of a scam? I mean, definitely in our community, we definitely need to know that because I mean, we have
Wow.
proprietary lending, which is lawful. So we definitely want to know about telltale signs
Mm.
of fraudulent activity.
Well, I
Or
didn't
are there
say
any?
there. You know what? I'm going to be honest. Some of these people are good.
Wow.
Some of these people are really, really good. Some of
Is
them
it
cover
because there's so
themselves
much
in.
leniency in that industry, or they're just really just
So if
pragmatic
you,
on how they approach this the
so
thievery?
that's kind of why we had to get the HUD certification. Um,
Ah,
before,
no more Wild Wild West.
yeah, before,
And so briefly, hold on. Let's just briefly explain to the audience what this HUD certification means. Just briefly, like I know
torture,
you probably
torture.
not what it means to you guys.
Oh, okay.
What
Um,
exactly was the, I guess the standardization? What was the push for it? Why do you feel
okay.
or why do you know?
So I think that the housing crisis, it was the push for some type of um, national certification. Now, when I became a housing counselor, there were multiple certifications that I had to get from other organizations like PHFA, the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, who is one of our funders. We had classes through NeighborWorks, we had classes through NARS, National Real Estate Education Institute. We had a lot of you know, classes that I had to take, certifications that I had to take, tests that I had to take and pass. Um, this is a national certification that HUD made me take. It's a, I forget how to describe. I forget the word. Proctored. Is that right? I'm saying it right? Proctored. Let's see.
Oh, a proctor
Yeah,
test.
it's a proctored
Yeah,
test.
where
So
they're
we have
watching you or
to.
you're
They're
actually
watching us.
observed. I'm
Um,
not gonna say watching, they're observed.
watching us. It covers like the six, five or six basic six uh, areas of home ownership, which is first time, which is pre-purchase or home ownership, first time home buyers. Then you have renters. They had a big part on insurance and investment, but I don't do that, but they had that in there.
Oh
Fair
wow.
housing, foreclosure, and something else. Was it credit? Yeah, credit. But credit, yeah. They all six of those sections, and we had to take the standardized test and pass the test. Um, I
So would
have
it be
done the
safe to say or not safe to say that if someone is HUD certified, not a fraud, or are there
so
frauds out
I
there
would
with the
definitely go for
certification?
somebody who is HUD certified. If you can't
Okay.
find somebody who is HUD certified, because it's a pretty new test, and it's an easy test, but it's not an easy test. Just follow your gut. Um, be careful who you give your information to. You can always sit down on your cell phone and Google about a nonprofit, Google about an organization, find out what they're supposed to do, what they're not supposed to do. Um, if you go in there and your files are all over the place, away from computers, they're asking, you know what I mean? Like there's certain things. Now, some of us ask for money, some of us don't. My agency doesn't. But it really, you just need to use your better judgment.
Hmm.
If it's too good to be true, it's not true. And a lot of times, also ask around. Ask around. You'll I didn't see a lot of fraud on the front end because first time home buying is so happy and nice, and you're looking at them predatory lending and fair housing issues. Nobody wants that. I saw a lot of fraud on the back end in the dark side foreclosure is a lot of fraud. And not just fraud where they get you, you're getting swindled, but fraud where these out of nowhere law firms are assisting clients with mortgage paperwork that I do for free. And if you don't get the modification the first time, you got to pay, and it's a lot. And I have
Oh,
clients that
wow.
have paid thousands of dollars to these firms, to these organizations. Some of them claim to be for profits. I mean, and I can't say that every for profit and every law firm that does this is a crook, because there are a lot of places that do this that aren't. There are a lot of lawyers
Right,
that are
right,
out here that, you know what I mean? There are lawyers that specialize in this type of stuff, because
right,
sometimes, things go the way, and you have to pay them. So not
right.
everyone is a crook. But I always tell my clients that when you're talking about your house, ask some questions. Ask questions. Think about, what you're going for and who this place is. And, do your research. Because if they're asking you to send them thousands of dollars, that can be money that you're sending to your lender.
True indeed.
You
True
know?
indeed. True
So,
indeed.
you know,
Mismanagement of
and
funds, as I call it.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's
Like,
but
wait a
they
minute, don't make
treat you
dollars,
like
don't
that
make
because
sense. You gotta figure
but
it out.
people panic when they're in trouble,
That is
and
true.
people prey on
Especially if
them.
we're not already educated on the situation
Prey on them.
and we don't have a healthy relationship with money or just being in crises. I mean,
Yeah,
especially, my show is especially talking about our community, and crises is a triggering, traumatizing thing in all facets. It comes in many different areas of our life that I don't even think we're all quite fully aware of. But especially when it comes to home ownership and the correlation to our history with home ownership and management of money and having access to money and then having access to money and home ownership. So I think it also becomes just a terrifying thing. And with the lack of education that we're given, it's almost as if, this quote unquote American dream that I know we spoke about before, this quote unquote American dream, it gives a lot of directives, but there's no directions. There's no between the lines. There's no, well, get a house. There's no of managing the house. There's no of managing the stress of a house, preparing for that, and not being scared to make those
decision.
premeditated thoughts that'll put you in better positions later on the line. Because money today is cheaper than it'll cost you tomorrow.
So, can
Hey,
you hear my
cutie.
dog? Because she's in the back having like a fit.
I
Um,
think she wants to be interviewed as well. I think is passionate about the housing
she has something
crisis.
to say. She has something to say.
Yeah.
What I have learned is pre-purchase education is very, very important.
What's the
Home
success rate you
ownership.
would say from those that do than those that don't that need it? And
There's
I'll put that
actually,
spin
I
on
think
it.
it's the Pew Reports. There's actually a study on that. I don't remember off the top of my head. My mom would kill me. But there's a couple reports that show that homeowners that get first time home buyer or just financial education. Because, like I said, I have had first time home buyer clients and I try to make it is a happy moment, but you got to talk about the real stuff. You know,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
some
yeah.
people, they like, oh, I don't,
And not for it to be a scapegoat, but for it to
right.
be the stepping stone to making the pivot.
Maybe it's not the right time. And I think that a lot of
Right,
people think that you have to buy a home when you're young. No. Some of my first time home buyers are 40 and 50 and some even 60 buying their first home because that's where they're at in life. So
right,
you don't have to, move out your mom's house and move into a 3-bedroom house with 2 bathrooms and a stock kitchen. If you
right. And
can, that's great.
that's a whole nother discussion about moving out
Right?
too
If you
early. That's a
can,
whole
that's
nother
great.
discussion.
But if you can't, then that's okay. We can work on getting to that place. We can work on getting there. And I think that that's, the one thing about, that I like about my job is that I have a lot of people that they go through my first time home buyers class and they're like, oh, Miss Ryan, you taught me things. Because we only talk about housing stuff. We talk about, the different types of loans, FHA versus conventional. We talk about, how much you have to have down for each loan, PMI, MIP, all those things that a lot of people don't know. People don't
Right.
they just don't know, and they don't know because it's not taught.
We aren't taught.
It's not taught,
And half of the
and
time we aren't in a community that knows to teach it either.
you know. But see, here's the one thing that I like about our communities. Our communities, I can say for Philly, there are a good amount of nonprofits, and there are some great nonprofits in Philadelphia. Um, there are some great housing counselors in Philadelphia. There are some great housing counselors in the U.S. But I can speak for my Philly housing counselors. Um, there are some great housing counselors, and I've gone to workshops, other housing counselors workshops, and learned stuff like, oh snap, I didn't even know that. Oh wow, you can do that because you know what I mean. Like I
Yeah.
have, and and it's not just about learning how this is how much money, but it's also tricks on how you can save, and a lot of times clients come to me and they ask me about points. I want to pay for points. Well, you can, or you can put more money
But
down
is
on the
it
front end.
is
It's up
it
to
is it
you.
in your best interest? Yeah.
It's up
Yeah.
to you. And we discuss it because if you really think that that's what you should do, I'm not going to talk you out of it, but there are other things, so,
Right.
I think that what people, I think the benefit of us is just to talk and to listen and to see where people are because like I said, I've had clients that are like, you look at their credit score and I look at them like, well, we need to switch seats because you need to tell me what you did. 'Cause I don't know what you did, and they laugh, but it's true. I met one young lady was an accountant. I mean, lady, I need you when you're done with this to come back and fix mine because I don't know what you did. I don't even know how you did, but yeah, and some of them are like that. Some of my clients are they're just good with money. They're just good with. They know how to save. They know how to stack. They know how to spend. They're good with money. So when they come to me, they have a great credit. They just need me to let them to help them with FHA versus conventional stuff like that. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
Like
Just
the
the right.
stuff like
Just
that. Yeah.
now you need the meat
How
and
much house
potatoes
can I
before
afford with the
everybody needs
money
all
that I
that.
make? I
Right,
don't want to be
right,
struggling. Those are the type
right,
of conversations we have
right.
with those folks. I have some folks that we got to start from the beginning. So you want to buy your first home, and and you, and you go that way because some of them they
Like the
they
little
don't know.
shopper hearts, you got the little
They
perfect
don't
house
know.
like so.
I've had clients
Yeah,
tell, I don't know
yeah,
what I'm
no,
doing.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
And
So no
it's no. So
shame.
let me bring it back just for a little bit. Like, so okay, so the housing crisis, not the housing crisis, but the whole COVID calamity that has
Uh,
happened has steered
uh,
you into more rental assistance, and I'm assuming some foreclosure as well.
foreclosures are
Um,
just starting up now. So they're just starting. They
so
were frozen for a while.
what? Okay, so just this is going to be a layered question. So what is what does that look like right now, right? And also, how do you see that reflecting in the next, I guess, 4 years? What is that turnover? Because there's a life cycle to everything, business cycle. There's a cycle to everything. And so, what's going on now, and how do you think it's going to project
Well,
or could project the rest of in 3 years, 5 years?
so I think this is going to be how it started when I first became a housing counselor back in like 2013, because we were just coming out of the recession. Um, and housing issues, some people don't feel it until years and years later because they're just hanging on by a thread, and then one thing happens and it throws everything off. Um, I think that if there's a lot of help coming out, so hopefully people can get the help that they need. There are a lot of programs out here that can help homeowners save their homes. That's what we want. But there's going to be a few of quite a bit of people who are going to be affected negatively.
Okay. So with that, also that renting um situation and
Oh
renters
Lord.
assistants and landlords and just the dynamic of that all. Um, wow. Uh, um, ooh. So what is what is the break even of how it's affecting us? Because there we are landlords and we are renters. And the sentiment that I've gathered from a few people in the industry, like I said, I'm in the real estate industry. I'm in the Portland metro area. Just seeing the dynamic of what's going on. Um, is that really helping or hurting? What do you think? What do you think?
Um, hmm. It depends. Some of the clients, it helped them because it kept them in their homes before they could, before they can get back on their feet, and it got them the assistance that they needed to keep the landlords happy. And the ones that are back to work, that were blessed enough to go back to work, are back to work, and everything seems to be okay. But there's a particular group of people that I'm worried about, and those are the ones that aren't back to work, that were at work but lost their job due to the vaccine mandates that are going on out here.
Hmm.
Um, and I just don't know. Um, I think that some landlords have made out like fat cats. I actually have had landlord, but a lot of those circumstances were very unique. Um,
Mm, mm,
I think it's going to be real hard for tenants, some of us, um, because this crisis has left a bad taste in a lot of landlords' mouths, especially the mom and pops.
mhm,
And
mhm.
I think that the lack of mom and pops is going to really affect certain credit and income brackets. Um, and I also
Right,
think
because when you're
that
dealing with like a private renter type of situation,
you have
you
more
have some
time to
caveats. You gotta
negotiate.
be, yep, yeah, yeah.
You know,
And with
I
less of
also
that, you're
think
gonna have more corporate coming in. I guess it's,
investors are buying up properties, and also homeowners are going to be, landlords are going to sell their property to save what they have. So
mhm.
it's also going to be a little bit harder for somebody um, who has an eviction on their record to find something new because it's going to leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. Um, However, I do think that the majority of folk um, are doing what they're supposed to do. There will always be a small, select, minute few that cut up, but that's life.
Right,
But what
right.
I'm hoping is that these landlords um, understand that. Well, no, let me rephrase that. What I'm seeing now is that rent is doubling and tripling.
I guess they're trying to
When
get
I'm
back to break even.
what I'm seeing is that people, once they get evicted, the landlord turns around and rents it because there used to be places in Philly where you could still find a place for under $1,000. It's not going to be
And
in the
that's for
best
that,
neighborhood, and it's
and
not
that's
going to
for
be the
what, a
best
one bed
place.
in perspective. That's for a one bedroom
Yeah,
studio.
yeah,
Okay, okay,
yeah. We're
okay.
talking about one bedrooms and studios. I've
Got it.
even seen people that found like little 2-bedroom houses for like 1,200. Those are now going now because a lot of those
Mm,
people, yeah, because there was a time where you can go and like I said, I'm gonna repeat myself, they were not the best neighborhoods. You really don't want to be there. But if you had to lay your head somewhere and you only had a certain amount of money a month, you could find something. It's not the case anymore. You're
wow.
looking and you're looking, you know, places where, the rent used to be a 3-bedroom was maybe 13, 1,400. We're talking about an efficiency is 13, 1,400.
Wow.
You know,
That's a
and
drastic change.
yeah,
And the
I have
sad part
clients.
is that's cheap compared to where
Yeah,
that's cheap
but here's
compared to
the
where
thing:
I'm
I
at.
have clients
Which
that
means that's
used to,
scary. It can go
yeah,
up.
it can go. I have clients that went from paying 750, 850, 1175 for a 3-bedroom house, and that's without the waiver.
Wow.
1175. It was deep in Southwest. He gonna sell that house,
I, I bet he is.
you know. And it's sad because a lot of people, home ownership. Not, I'm not gonna say that they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to do it yet. but they're not going to have a choice.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people that was in their plan. I mean, being from Philly, oh, excuse me, we always had the old head that had the property.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I know one of my great uncles was one of that. Like we just had, it was a hustler, not necessarily a man, but it was always someone around, and they had properties, or they had apartments or something like that, and they just kind of had them. And I always looked at it like it was amazing, but especially now being an adult, I'm like, yo, we don't have that anymore. We don't have a lot of um small business owners that own like maybe like 10 to 15 doors anymore. You know what I mean? If they do, sometimes it's a quadplex or they do bigger investments, but the smaller, like, just couple of properties here and there, you know what I mean, type of thing is not going to be a thing anymore because all of that carrying of those properties is not lucrative anymore for them, and not even in the slightest bit, because now taxes are going up, gentrification is changing the property value. Um, it's just changing.
Well, it's not just changing. The few people that are there can't even get peace. Like it Philadelphia now is like I never thought that I would understood why everybody left, and now I understand it. Like they're building stuff everywhere. It doesn't even look the same. You can't afford it. You know, and you're not getting nothing out of it. But I love my city, so what am I going to do? I can't afford DC either, so let's be real. I can't
All of
afford
these
DC.
cities are getting wild. It's just a national thing of preservation of neighborhoods almost. It's almost like the family breakdown and then the neighborhood breakdown. Like it gets very institutionalized when you remove that type of togetherness that you get from those type of environments. Like
Right.
just growing up, knowing that Miss So and so down the street can not only snitch on you, but lay hands on you. Not saying capital punishment is always the answer, but to know that that was a feasible thing to now where it's so many mixture of issues. You have, well, can you trust the people with your kids? Are the
Mm-hmm.
kids telling the truth? Like there's so many factors that play in it now. It's just not, it's just not the same. I guess it has to sound like old heads, but back in my day,
Gee, I never thought that I would live in a time where you couldn't just go to certain parts of Philadelphia and buy a house. All those parts of Philadelphia where you can go get your little starter property are highly gentrified and out of most. I'm not going to say any, but a lot of average Philadelphian incomes. A lot of average Philadelphians cannot afford right now a $350,000 house, and so you get pushed. You can't get
that's
back in the
wild.
neighborhood once you leave.
$350,000 in Philadelphia, PA. That is
There are certain neighborhoods you can't even
bananas
look
in
at
my
a
head.
house,
Like,
and
don't get
that's
me
the
wrong, I know the
start.
houses are
That's
amazing.
not even. That's on the low end. That's just the start. You got $250,000 people running around, $250,000, and then 2 blocks up is a crack house. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. It
you
makes me
know,
wonder because, he has a big personality, and, to
it's
me,
changing.
that's the way. But to me, honestly, Philly is kind of like Baltimore in a way where they always try to push conformity on Philly. And Philly always innately figures out a way to push back. Innately. It's almost as if it's born in us to fight. It's just super interesting because, we had that first chain of change that people were trying to go through, a lot of the avenues that got remodeled, and Center City had kind of did a change and things like that. But they still didn't push as fast as I feel like the plan was to, because there's still a lot of remodeling and all of that further deeper into the cities like Ridge and North and
Mm-hmm.
areas. I won't say Ridge because Ridge has been super commercial as far as if you're going around the water, it's been super commercial. But as soon as you go a half of a block in, you in North. Like that's
Yup,
it.
north.
But they surely were renting those apartments even back when I lived there over 15 years ago. They were still renting them what would be considered high for Philly at the time. And just to think that they're going further in it into, but I don't think that the push was as fast. But I think COVID will maybe change some things too.
I
Um,
think, like
but that's
with
a whole
there,
nother
yeah, they
situation
were
with
because they're
COVID.
building buildings downtown like nobody's business, trying to make it like a little New York City. And no offense to anybody from New York City, but if I wanted to live there, I would. I live in Philly for a reason, because I want to live in Philly. I don't want to live in little New York or little anything else. I want to live in Philly. I'm off my
Mm,
soapbox. But there's a lot of development here. And
mhm,
a lot of people are coming here from outside of Philly, um, which is making it even harder for the folks in Philly to live here. And then we have to, address the violence in general in Philadelphia. It
yeah.
feels like it's back in the 90s. So,
Yeah. 'Cause I think you
um,
guys just got the right to carry or something,
I don't know what
right?
they at.
I think I
I don't
just
know
read
what
that. I
they're
gotta look
doing.
that up. But
They're
some
doing
I know.
something, but because you have, we just had an incident yesterday where a guy blocked somebody in, fight broke out, somebody got knocked down, person that got knocked down jumped up, pulled out a gun and shot him.
Oh wow.
You know, I don't know the specifics. I think the person that had the gun was the driver of the car that was boxed in, and the Uber driver boxed him in, double parked, and wouldn't move the car.
Oh.
So I mean, yeah, you know what I mean. Like like the violence here is crazy, but um, I am hoping that things change for the better. I love my city. You know what I mean? Like it's home, but y'all wrong.
Oh gosh. Well, dag. Well, let me. But dag, it went so fast. Dag, it always goes so fast. It seemed like so long, and then it's not. We just have a few more minutes before we wrap up. I just want to maybe close it on maybe some pointers on the front and the back end. So maybe some pointers on how to get ready for purchasing a home, if that is in fact your thing, and some pointers on how to deal with foreclosing, the dirty
Okay,
backside of it.
so there are the three C's of credit. The three C's of pre-purchase home ownership, and it's credit, um, collateral, and capacity. And when you look at home ownership, you need to make sure that you have the credit, you have the capital. I mean, the credit, the collateral, meaning the savings, and the capacity, the ability to pay for the house. If you have those three things, home ownership really should be, um, in a nutshell. And my job as a housing counselor is to break down what those three elements are and find a way for us to achieve them, and then set you on your way. It's all about education. It's never about, you don't know this. It's all about education. Reading some of these materials, I learned something. I learn something new every time I pick up something. So it's all about educating you to be the best homeowner that you can possibly be, so that if things happen, there's a plan A, B, C, D, and so forth. Um, Foreclosure, on the other hand, is really hard, because it's the fear of losing your home, it's the fear of your credit being damaged, and things of that nature. Um, so,
And how long does the damage occur for?
7 to 10 years. It depends.
Okay.
It
Right.
depends. Um, and I also want to say that credit is like a baby. It falls, it scrapes its knees, it breaks its legs, but it gets better. And if you work hard at it and you change your spending habits little by little, I always encourage my clients to be realistic with budgeting. Don't be crazy with the budgeting. Don't be realistic. And
Right.
I
Right.
also encourage people to treat yourself. So
I I
you know what I
tell
mean.
people
Take
that I'm like,
treat
don't make
yourself be-
unrealistic things because it
because
won't be attainable. You need
it,
to put in, oh, I like my Cinnabon on Friday.
you
Like you need to put that in.
because it's just like a person that's um you starve yourself of it, and then when you do it, you overload. So
Right,
you
right.
always
I was going to
treat
say
yourself.
that because then you
You
treat
know,
yourself. So if it's planned for, you're like, oh, I have that allocated. But
it's
if it's
cool. Yeah,
not, then you want to get Cinnabon and you need to stop at the store and you got to see if they got this new jacket. Like you
yeah,
just
you're
go
wrong.
because out of hyper guilt,
Yeah, you're
you
wrong.
like self-loathing and self
You're wrong. You're wrong.
pacifying and being crazy all at the
You
same
know,
time. But it's a thing. It's a thing.
yeah,
So
it
you
is.
got to make a realistic budget. Realistic budgets, and I think that's for anything,
And
business,
budgeting is not a
everything.
bad word. Budgeting
No,
is not a bad
no.
word. You can do,
It's almost like
and
people
that's for
correlate
both
to being
sides.
poor, and it's not that. Everything has
It
a
is.
budget.
If you're poor, you better budget.
But I mean, people like slowly correlate that and then make it
No,
synonymous with being
budgeting
poor.
is
Like
actually the smart
budgeting,
thing to do because budgeting shows you where your money is going, and it
yeah,
actually shows you what when you start to because even tracking your money, I try to get clients before we budget, let's track. Let's see
right,
what we're spending our
right.
money on. And
Yeah,
there
that's
are
a big
so
thing.
many apps and worksheets online. You can even
Yep.
just get a piece of paper and write
And
down,
print out your bank statements or look at your
you
bank
know,
statements last 3 months
track
and
what you spend first.
yeah.
Once we figure out what you spend, then we can adjust and begin to budget. That's how
And
things go.
also, I will say that some of these banks have started adding that as a like a secondary platform with it. I know I have Navy Federal. Not I'm not plugging. I'm not getting paid. But I have Navy Federal, and they have something when you go on their website that it'll give you like a financial synopsis, and it'll give you a pie chart of where it saw you put
Hmm.
your money. Now there probably can be some marginal error. Maybe you went to Starbucks and got a sandwich and not a drink. You know what I mean, type of thing. But it might just be a little marginal error like that, but it does give you a pie chart and you can see where you spend the most money. And yeah, it'll make you curb stuff real fast. Seeing it,
Yeah,
because now you have the card and all of this stuff, and you can just swipe, and it's just almost out of sight, out of
it's
mind for
so
some
easy.
people.
It's so easy to mess up
It's
on
so
that
easy.
card.
It's just
It's
like,
so
oh, that's
easy.
only $3. Oh, it's only this. And next thing you know, like, I don't know about
You
y'all,
didn't
but
spend
it's expensive to go
$75 at
outside.
Wawa.
It's expensive to go outside. I
Yeah,
step
yeah.
outside, especially
I
and
had
it's
to put
like
myself on a cash diet. I had to start going back
that is
to
super
I'm getting
helpful.
ready to age
That's super
myself
helpful.
what my mom used to do when she used to go to the Mac machine and pull out a certain amount of money for the week because I don't like to use my card because I don't remember everything. I'm not going to remember that I went to Starbucks and then I went
Right.
to let's say I went
And
to
you remember when you broke
get me
that
a
20?
salad. Yeah, and then I got, no, I'm not going to remember that, but if I have cash and I bust
Yeah.
that 20 and I get back $2 back. Let me stop.
You're like, whoa.
So,
You start
20
holding
don't
your
last no
invisible
more. So
pearls.
yeah, 20 don't last no more. You
No,
bust a 20, you
no.
get a 5 and 2 ones. Like, what the
Right. That you used to be able to treat the crew with 20 bucks at the Chinese store.
man? That was 3 days worth of eating. You get 4 wings.
Yeah, so we only have a few moments left. Any last words of encouragement for people? I know we'll probably talk again at some point, but um I just want to make sure it's communicated that the resources are out there and
Yes.
don't be afraid. And there is a method to the madness of preparing yourself for whatever it is. Even renting has some readiness that you need to do for.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but I just want to make sure to touch base on that.
I think that if I was going to close out, I would say that knowledge is power. As cheesy as it may sound, an educated home buyer, a prepared home buyer is a happy home buyer, is a happy homeowner and a prepared homeowner. And there's no stupid questions. There's no like, oh, they're going to like kill me for not knowing this. That's what pre-purchase. That's what counseling is for. And that's for anything. Like if knowledge is so important. Because then you'll know what to look for. When you get the knowledge, then you know what if things don't sound right, it's not right. So I just say that the education is out there. There are people like me out there that can help you with all your home ownership goals. And it's just that's it.
Right, I will say having a realtor, if you are looking at homes, having a realtor or having a housing counselor that is indeed encouraging a holistic approach, meaning having a conversation and communication and relationship with the lender and also the insurance and maybe even the inspectors and things like that, having a holistic approach will also help you be ready for those next steps and you're not stuck holding the bag on what is next. Your team is ready, you're ready, and it makes you that all that more prepared for the what ifs and if anything does happen. And if you have a good team that's ready like that, then usually your contract should be right. People should be negotiating in the best interest of you as their client.
Right.
And hopefully no predatory lending and no foreclosures.
That's a
It
whole
was
other
great.
episode.
We definitely don't want that. It was great talking to you, Miss Franks. Um, it was a pleasure of mine. I am so happy to have this time to talk to you, especially since we're in the industry, but in different spectrums. It's good to hear, I guess, a humane approach. Some people call real estate agents sometimes inhumane, but no, just the humanity approach, the part coming from the community, from the social side. And I say the business side being realtors, just how home ownership, you see it perspective. So I just want to thank you and really give you your flowers for all the experience and all the work that you do in our community. I'm pretty sure
Oh,
there's
thank you.
people that every night that you don't know.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And this was actually kind of fun. I was a little nervous, but it was fun. So you know,
Yay.
I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thanks, everyone. It's been a good evening. We'll talk to you guys later on The Shits with host by Lana.